I'm John Cogley. I'm the owner of Daniel Smith, and today we're in the artist studio with artist Michael Holter. Michael is from the Dallas, Texas area, that's USA, and we're going to look at his studio, and he's going to tell us and show us his art and workshop. Michael, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me, John. I appreciate the opportunity to share what I do from home. Here we are in my home studio, right where I work and live. So.
Fantastic. So can you tell us about yourself?
Well, I've been an artist and a creative person really all my life. Enjoyed the fact that I could live in a creative world. I got an art degree and taught art in high schools early on for about 7 years. And after that, decided to, I didn't want to, I had some, a family and some children. I didn't know if I could do a starving artist thing. So I did switch and got a master's degree in more of a visual communication program, which got me a master's degree. And then I moved into administrating art and creatives, writers and designers at a college for a period of time, running a creative department. And then why we're in the Dallas area is I got hired to come down and work at an agency here as a creative director, and did that at a couple agencies. Went to the chief creative officer level, and then had my own small design shop for about 10 years before 2008, which kind of slowed a lot of things down, and then things shifted. And at that time, I began to paint more. I had been painting all along, doing some original hand artwork. I had some gallery space and things like that in my studio, so I used to exhibit and sell some work, but I wasn't painting a lot because I was busy with my commercial work. After about 2011, I began to paint portraits more, and watercolor portraits, and so the portraits began to get a lot of interest from people. I began to enter a lot of shows, so from that point on, I've become more or less a watercolor artist. I do oils as well. I have a little bit of a room in my life for some oil painting, but it kind of gets dominated by the watercolors. So and so today now it's I do a lot of workshops, travel and do a lot of workshops, or I had been. March was my last one at this point, and now most everything has been canceled all the way to the summer. So the fall we'll see. But I've started doing online workshops from right here. I'm sitting in my studio, which has become a broadcast studio in a way, a lot different space, but I've sort of kind of taken over a bunch of it with equipment. So it's just a little different take on what I do. I've always been in, like I say, in creative stuff. So I've done, web work and some little video things of sorts, but I've never been I'm sort of a jack of all trades in many ways on this kind of technology stuff, but it helps now,
It helps now. Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
So I see behind you some of your artwork, right? So you do portraits.
Yes.
I see some landscapes behind you as well. Do you do abstracts?
Very little. I don't. My preference is I'm more of an impressionist, and so my preference is to have something in my paintings that's representational. And even if I go fairly loose with a painting, an abstract-ish, there's something in it that's recognizable. I mean, it might be as simple as a watercolor thing with some tree shapes, and the rest of it is flowing as you would do an abstract almost. But I have some recognizable thing that holds it together, no matter what I'm doing. Played around a little bit with some things, and I would love to do more. Now I became a TV or a video technology kind of guy, so it's taking up time. So you have to trade off on what you can get done in your life, and so. I used to teach, like I said, so I taught high school art, and I used to do everything. We would do pottery and photography and sculpture and printmaking, and so you, as a teacher of all those things, you learn a lot of things about, or a little bit about a lot of things. Some of them kind of stick with you. I've always been interested in painting, and watercolor has become a medium somewhat of a necessity. It's been but it's become a choice, as time goes on.
Oh, excellent. So does your paintings come from portraits you take, or actually pictures you take, or is it plein air, or is it just from bits and pieces in your head that you put things together?
Well, they're not, most of the time they're not out of my head, although landscapes are pretty easy for me to knock out, create something fictional. And I do some. Most of my, and I do some plein air. I've been involved in some of the plein air shows and the plein air festival. I am I'm not I love painting plein air, but I don't do it enough. And I think part of it is my eyes don't really like a lot of that, the light and the situations that I run into when I'm outside a lot. I mean, I like to go out. I love outdoors. I love seeing it all, but I'm not real good at spending a lot of time out there with the just nature of my physical being with my eyes. But that does happen. So most of my work is from photographs. The portraits, I've done a few, things here and there from life. I do have a small group that we paint from life once in a while. And, but most of the portraits are also photographs. So I use a lot of photography. I use the photography in Photoshop to crop and to find the best compositions. I use the tools that are on the computer quite a bit. So I'm kind of a mixed breed. I guess part of it's my commercial art side that, influences all that too, coming from that background. But so it's a little bit of a mixture, but mostly photography is my reference.
And how many paintings do you do in a year? And how long does an average painting take you to do?
Wow, that's a good one. I'm not one of those that does 12 paintings a year or something that are very. I do because I'm doing these online workshops which are 3 hours long, so I get a painting done front to back within that time, plus talking and teaching and doing all these things around it. So the actual 12 by 16 painting, I'll just switch over to my desktop here, and you can see one of them that's on the desktop here. This is my painting area.
Oh, yeah.
So this is a 12 by 16 that I did last Saturday in my workshop, online workshop. And so, again, that type of painting can be done pretty quickly. Now, my portraits are a more time-consuming proposition because the way I do them, and I can do a small sketch, like when I teach a workshop, I can go through a small sketch within a few hours. But the more involved ones take quite a while, and I have to sit back. Once you get to the point where you're working on the face and the details of the face, I go a lot slower because I want to capture the subtle nuances of the face. And so it can take a couple of days. It can take a week. But I put it aside and I come back. So it's drink a lot of coffee between things. One brush stroke here and then go drink some coffee. So it's one of those things. It's not easy to just pinpoint time with these.
And when you do paintings, do you do more than one at a time? So you take a rest on one and then go to another one and start with that one, or you go back and forth, or once you're locked in on doing a painting, do you stay with it till you're done?
So most of the time I'm doing right now with all these landscapes that I've been doing and the kind of type I'm doing, they're pretty much done in one sitting or two, and then a little bit of finishing up later if I see something that I need to fix. Again, the portraits I would take longer at. So a lot of times I would have, when I'm into one of those, I might have it on the easel. And a lot of times they're larger. I'm doing them for a show or something. So I might get partway through and then I'll go do something else, and then I'll come back to it. And it's kind of nice to have that break. When I'm doing oil painting, if I have an oil painting on the easel, that'll sit there. I mean, I'll do a little bit of work on that. And then there's a point where I can't go any further. So I have to wait for it to dry a little bit or something. So there's some time lag in an oil painting too, but watercolors are a little little quicker in that sense. They dry and you can move ahead, you know.
So are you a painter? I saw you had a palette there that was open. Do you use pans or tubes? What is your paint of choice?
I'm a tube guy. I like the liquid, you know, paint that just, you know, right out of the tube is ready to go. I like it pretty wet, and so and I like a lot of pigment. So I'm not. I like to have pretty fresh paint. I like to keep it pretty moist. If I leave my palette over, you know, overnight, I'll put some moisture in there, a sponge or something, try to keep it wet. Um, I'm not. I don't like to have to re-wet the paint like a pan. And I know some of them are more moist than others, but never really tried them that much anyway. But uh, mostly tubes.
And um, in terms of paints, how many paints do you reuse? I mean, do you do a color study before you do a painting, or do you?
Yeah, let me switch this camera and I'll show you my palette here and all that. It just take a second to switch this.
Yeah. Okay.
This is I'll show you this tray over here or this board. I've got a board here with
Oh my gosh.
all the paints that I use. Let me switch this now to that other camera.
Oh
So
yeah.
this is my palette on the right side here, and you can see it's I've got some warms, and I've got it lined up. I got some warm tones from the brightest yellow all the way to an alizarin crimson. This is my yellow range, yellow and reds. I have my blues over here, cobalt teal to ultramarine blue. And I have some warms in here, burnt sienna, raw sienna, quinacridone burnt orange. I love the quinacridone colors. That's to me is burnt sienna on steroids. It's a great color for a lot of things.
Beautiful color, yes.
And so those are, I use a lot of burnt sienna and French ultramarine for my mother color, my puddle of what I call my stew when I'm painting. And for my greens, I use a lot of quinacridone gold. I love your quinacridone gold. That's kind of I just one of my, you know, for greens, I used to hate greens. And I've had some of the other tubes. I do have your undersea green, which I guess is basically ultramarine blue and quinacridone gold anyway, right? Is that about what it is? So I can use that if I need a quick, you know, green, but most of the time I'm making my greens. I have some opaques over here, and I have some darks, a sepia and a neutral tint. I do have a quinacridone violet, so I can get a little violet without much pigment. That stuff goes a long way too. But that's most of my palette. I have a lot of these other colors that I've tried and I should use more of, but I kind of, a lot of this is dictated on, this small palette really is dictated because I was doing a lot of traveling and some plein air, and this is a lot easier to travel with than a bigger, I used to always use a bigger Pike palette, and so this is kind of where I'm at today with my pigments and colors. But.
Very nice. Yeah. Okay. And so I didn't see any high granulating colors there. Are you a fan of granulation?
You know, I've kind of just gotten used to certain colors, and I work with those, and I'm not I don't experiment, I guess, with color a lot. I should. You know, there's so many, and you all make such great colors and so many different things. I should probably do more, but it is a situation where, again, I've gotten used to certain things. Over the years, you know, you kind of develop a palette you like, and I like to stick with it pretty much.
Yeah. It makes sense to me. In terms of brushes, are you a fan of synthetic or a fan of natural, combination of both? And do you have any unique brushes?
Yeah, I do. Let me grab this. This is my my little rack here of brushes, and I have turn it around. Maybe well, you can't see it much better, but so I have this kind of array that I use for my workshops. Let me turn it to the other camera again. That'll be easier. and I can show you better.
Oh, yeah.
So this is the array of brushes. I have everything from, this is a Cheap Joe's dagger brush, a loose goose, he calls it. And this is a Alvaro Castanet reservoir rigger, fine point rigger, which is really good. So those are really good for a lot of line work and small things. I've got some mops here that I use quite a lot. I have a series of Escoda brushes. These are all synthetic. The mops, by the way, are squirrel probably, or synthetic, or mixtures. And then I have these Escoda Perlas, which are you know, a fairly stiff synthetic. Love those. Some of my favorite brushes right now are these right here. These are a Princeton long round velvet touch, they're called, and they have a really long fiber to them and a really nice fine little point. So I can do big wash things, or I can get real fine lines with them, all out of the same brush, and the handle's really nice. I really like those a lot. This one here is a little different. It's more of a I think it was just really an oil painter's brush because it's real long, but it's a real long rigger. It's made by Neef, I guess it's called, from Australia. Mm-hmm. And it's really good for a lot of things. You can get fine lines, but you can also use it as a sort of a scrubbing brush. I use some Hake brushes. These are some I've had for a long time. This one has been, I think this is maybe 40 years old. I've been working at that for a long time. You know, palette knife, even a chip brush, you know, from the hardware store that you use to, I don't even know what they use them for. I guess just to paint a little spot, but they're like a pony bristle brush, and you can get great little tree effects and things with it. Part of my when I'm teaching, part of the thing I talk about quite a bit is the, you know, it's mark making is what you're doing with the brushes and the tools. Doesn't matter what they are. If you can make a mark that works, or if you can figure out a way to use a brush to create a shorthand. You know, back in the day when people did shorthand, they'd do a little squiggle and it meant a whole sentence perhaps. So today in watercolor, you have to learn, okay, how do I, as a watercolorist, how can I symbolize that tree in the background with a couple of strokes? Which brush will give me the right texture, stroke, whatever it is, you know? And I'm not a photorealist, so I'm not trying to capture everything there. I'm trying to capture the essence of it. So that's part of the way I think about them. And anyway, back to the brushes. I have a toothbrush in here, and I have a X-Acto blade. I have a couple of flats that I use. So there's a good variety of brushes, and I use them in different ways in different paintings. I'd say my portraits are, I use less of the brush range. Mostly it's just nice rounds for the most part. So that's kind of the brush story there. Let me switch back.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
So could you show us a couple of your paintings and then maybe pan around your studio so we can see your studio?
Yeah. Let me, I still wanted to get that other camera working because that was the best way to do it. So my studio, I can't really show you the whole layout here with this camera, but it's a pretty large space. This wall back here, right now I've got some paintings on the wall that are a lot of framed ones. I had an online art exhibit just last week, and so I put a whole series of these framed ones up that were part of the exhibit. Usually I'll use that wall as a sort of a bulletin board almost. I'll pin with some push pins all my working paintings up there, and so that's kind of the way the thing works when I'm really really into it and I'm not thinking about it as a studio. But I have lots of paintings just around because that's what I'm doing these days, and it's certainly not traveling enough to find markets for these. So part of the life that I've been living up until now has been the, these workshops and traveling to these workshops and selling to the people who are going to the workshops. So that's the market's kind of dried up on that sense for right now too. But, so a lot of portraits that I do, a lot of faces. This was a workshop painting. This Sikh man. All these here are in plastic, so they reflect a little bit, I guess, on your camera. But some of these are. This one's not in plastic. I do a lot of different kinds of things. I like the way light falls on things, and I like just varied subjects, boats, architecture. I do a lot of different architectural things. There's a couple here. This is a San Francisco, and this is New York. Put those kind of as a pair here, huh? New York and San Francisco. Get a glare on them.
No, they're good.
Well, that's those are kind of some of what I do.
Roughly, how big is your space?
I forget it. It's about 16 by 20, probably something like that.
That's good sized.
It's I have a large light space on the outside coming in, and I have a light above me here that gives me quite a bit of light. So it's a comfortable spot. We've lived in this house quite a while, and I have intentions of really redoing this studio, getting some new flooring and doing all those kind of good things, but I can't get all the stuff out of it quick enough to do it.
So we have there'll be a lot of viewers interested, because you've been doing art for so long, of any tips or techniques that you might be able to provide them. Do you have any tips or techniques you can share with the viewers?
Painting techniques, that kind of thing.
Sure.
I'd say, going to the broad level of painting, I think with watercolorists, I think one of the biggest hindrances for people doing watercolor is being fearful, having a timidity about what you're doing. Paint with enthusiasm, and in watercolor, I have some videos that I've done, 7 steps to portraits and 7 steps to landscape through Creative Catalyst. And in both of those, one of the main steps is the planning step. With watercolor, I always equate it to playing chess. The best chess players can see further down the road than the ones that aren't as good. They're able to understand the whole game. And I think the best watercolorists are the ones that know where they're going and are able to get there because they know the steps they've got to go through. Now, sometimes when you're learning, you just want to start with, 2 steps. I just want to go from here to there, and then as you get more experience, you might have more things you need to do to get to the end result, or you decide my best paintings and my style likes this 1, 2, 3, and I'm done. So there's a lot of different ways to paint. I just like to see people find something that makes them enjoy it. If they're fearful about paint, or if they're, and I'm talking about, when I teach workshops with a lot of people that aren't very experienced. Now, those who are more experienced have less of that because they've done a lot, but I'd say those are tips, but not, technique tips, I guess, but it's a little hard to talk about those verbally, I guess.
Very good. Well, Mike, I want to thank you very much for spending time with us today. I appreciate it very much. Wish you and your family health. Look forward to seeing you in real life, maybe next year. Probably not, I doubt this year, but
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Who knows? Yeah, thank you for inviting me to visit with you. I'm sorry I couldn't have shown there's a whole studio with the camera, but it didn't work for some reason.
Uh,
Anyway, I do appreciate it very much. Bless you guys, and say hi to everybody up there in the northwest.
will do. Thank you,
All
Michael.
right, all right, bye.